The desert was merciless that afternoon, a searing sea of gold stretching endlessly beneath a ruthless sun. Heat shimmered on the horizon, playing tricks on the eyes, twisting hope into mirages. Sarah Parker stumbled forward, each step growing heavier, each breath more ragged. Dust caked her lips, and her throat felt as though it had been scrubbed raw. She didn't know how long she had been wandering, hours, maybe longer. Time meant nothing when survival became your only focus. Her car, now a smoldering wreck several miles behind her, had failed in the worst possible place, the lonely backroads of Arizona, far beyond the reach of cell towers and civilization. She had left the interstate for a shortcut suggested by a travel app, an error that now felt like a death sentence. Her legs buckled, and she collapsed onto the burning sand. Tears welled in her eyes but evaporated almost instantly in the cruel heat. This was it, she thought grimly. This was how it ended. But just as she surrendered to despair, a faint sound stirred the air, the steady, rhythmic clop of hooves against hard-packed earth. Sarah lifted her head, squinting against the blinding sun. At first, she thought it was another hallucination. But then, through the swirling haze, a figure emerged, a man atop a dusty chestnut horse. He wore a battered hat pulled low over his brow and a faded denim shirt streaked with sweat and dust. To Sarah, he looked like something out of an old western, impossibly rugged and entirely out of place in the modern world. The cowboy pulled his horse to a stop and dismounted in one fluid motion. Without hesitation, he knelt beside her and tipped back his hat, revealing warm brown eyes filled with concern. "Easy there, miss," he said, his voice low and steady. "You're gonna be all right." Sarah tried to speak, but only a rasp escaped her parched lips. He quickly offered her a canteen, guiding it carefully to her mouth. The water, lukewarm but life-giving, flooded her senses, and she gasped. "Name's Cole," he said gently. "Can you tell me yours?" "Sarah," she whispered hoarsely. "All right, Sarah. Let's get you out of this sun." Without waiting for her protest, Cole scooped her into his arms. He was strong, but he handled her as if she were made of glass. He lifted her onto his horse, climbed up behind her, and clicked his tongue to the animal. They moved slowly, Cole shielding her from the sun with his own body as best he could. Sarah clung weakly to the saddle horn, grateful beyond words. As they rode, the motion lulled her toward unconsciousness, but she fought to stay awake. She needed to know, who was this man? And where was he taking her? After what felt like an eternity, a small cabin came into view, tucked against a rocky outcropping. Weathered but sturdy, it was a miracle in the endless desert. Cole helped her down, supporting her weight as they entered the cool shadow of the porch. Inside, the cabin was simple but welcoming, wooden walls adorned with faded photographs, a stone fireplace, and a worn couch draped in a hand-stitched quilt. Cole lowered her onto the couch and immediately set to work, bringing her more water, checking her pulse, and examining the raw blisters on her arms. "You're lucky," he said, wrapping her hands in clean cloth. "Another hour or two and, well, best not to think about it." Sarah managed a faint smile. "Thank you," she whispered. He shrugged, almost shyly. "Ain't nothing." But it was everything. Over the next few days, Sarah slowly regained her strength. Cole nursed her with a patience and tenderness that surprised her. He cooked simple meals, beans, bread, stew, and always made sure she ate. He spoke little about himself, but his actions said enough. He was a man of quiet dignity, someone who didn't save lives for gratitude or recognition. As her strength returned, so did her curiosity. Why was a man like Cole living alone in the middle of nowhere? Why was his cabin filled with old photographs of people he never spoke about? One evening, as the sun melted into a symphony of pink and gold across the desert sky, Sarah found herself sitting on the porch beside him, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. "Why are you out here all alone?" she asked gently. Cole hesitated, his gaze distant. For a long moment, Sarah thought he might not answer. Finally, he spoke. Used to have a family. A wife. Little girl. Pain flickered across his face, raw and unfiltered. They were killed, 5 years ago. Wrong place, wrong time. Carjacking gone bad. His voice broke slightly, but he pushed on. After that, couldn't stand to stay in the city. Too many memories. So I came out here. Sarah's heart twisted. She reached out, placing a hand on his arm. He didn't pull away. I'm so sorry, she said, her voice thick with emotion. He nodded, eyes glistening. Ain't looking for pity. Just, this place, it's quiet. Gives a man time to think. Time to heal, maybe. They sat in silence as the stars ignited overhead, a quiet understanding forming between them. Days turned into a week, and Sarah grew stronger. She helped around the cabin, cooking, cleaning, mending worn clothes. In return, Cole taught her small things, how to ride a horse properly, how to find water in the desert, how to listen to the wind. It was the most alive Sarah had felt in years. Yet, a question lingered at the back of her mind: how had Cole found her? The desert was vast. She could have been anywhere. One morning, after breakfast, Sarah finally voiced her curiosity. Cole, how did you know where to find me? He set down his coffee cup, his expression unreadable. I didn't, he said quietly. I wasn't out there by accident. He rose, disappearing into a small side room. When he returned, he carried a dusty leather journal. He handed it to her wordlessly. Sarah opened it, flipping through pages filled with names, dates, locations. Her brow furrowed in confusion. I come out to the desert once a week, Cole explained. Check the back roads. Look for folks who get stranded. Happens more than you'd think. Tourists, truckers, runaways. Sarah's eyes widened. You've saved others. He shrugged. Few. Some I find in time. Some, not always. Emotion swelled in Sarah's chest. Cole wasn't just hiding from the world. He was quietly, selflessly saving it, one lost soul at a time. Why? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. He looked out the window, toward the endless desert. Couldn't save my family, he said. But maybe I can save someone else's. Tears blurred Sarah's vision. She closed the journal, holding it to her chest. You saved me, she said. Cole smiled then, a small, crooked smile that lit up his weathered face. You saved yourself, he corrected gently. I just gave you a hand. As the weeks wore on, Sarah realized she couldn't go back to her old life, not the same way, anyway. She had been rushing from one deadline to the next, chasing promotions, living disconnected from herself and others. Cole had reminded her of something she had forgotten, the simple, profound power of kindness. When she finally left the desert, it was not with a heavy heart, but with a new sense of purpose. She promised to visit Cole again, and she kept that promise. But she also carried his legacy forward. Back in her city life, Sarah started a nonprofit dedicated to roadside assistance in remote areas, providing emergency supplies, setting up rescue networks, educating travelers about the dangers of isolated roads. She named it the Second Chance Project. And on the dedication page of every brochure, every website, every interview, there was a simple line. Inspired by a cowboy who saved my life. Cole never sought recognition. He never asked for thanks. But Sarah made sure the world knew, there were still heroes out there. Quiet heroes, who believed that saving even one life was worth every sacrifice. Years later, standing at a grand opening for a new rescue outpost near the Arizona border, Sarah spotted a familiar figure in the crowd, a weathered cowboy hat, a rugged face, a small, proud smile. Cole tipped his hat to her across the distance. And Sarah, heart full to bursting, tipped her head right back. Because sometimes, the greatest changes come not from grand gestures or sweeping movements, but from a single act of selfless kindness, out in the middle of nowhere, beneath a merciless sun. And that was how a cowboy's quiet secret changed everything.